So December 9th, and we've got a ton of stories to get into today, but first we have to talk about this major shift in Russia's own domestic media narrative. If you want to know what Russia's planning to do, you have to look at the narratives that the Putin regime itself is inflicting upon the domestic population. As you know, Russians don't get the pitchforky thoughts of coming out into the streets because of things being bad for the Russians. No, they come out when the regime looks weak, and the regime has never, in fact, looked this weak since the 1990s and maybe before that, pre-1917. Now believing Ukraine's allies to be paralyzed in fake negotiations, Russia unmasks its intentions, no longer hiding that Russia's war is coming to all of Europe. So this is Russia telling the population domestically that they are going to escalate the war, because stepping back or signing anything, that is all blinking. And the Russian population will not handle that well for the Putin regime to blink in any way. So this is the narrative now. They can only escalate. They can only escalate until Putin's gone, is how this is going to go. We are at war with Europe, not with the miserable, pitiful, misled Ukraine. So now setting their sights on Europe. I'm not the president, so I can say plainly this war will not end until we defeat Europe, not Ukraine, morally and politically. As long as Europe's deranged elites continue their latest mad dash toward a global war, I don't think a truly stable peace will be achievable. They didn't wheel him out just to this one show. They wheeled him out to another show. Oh, by the way, this is the head of Russia's Council for Foreign and Defense Policy, Karaganov. I think we need to act more decisively. I hope that during this year, 2025, we will move up the escalation ladder. So calling for broadening of the war and force our American opponents to crawl away and finish off the Europeans. And unfortunately, that last sentiment, that this enforce our American opponents to crawl away and finish off the Europeans, that is now being parroted by the Trump administration's recent national security strategy out 5 days ago that's sowing so much panic from Australia to Japan to the halls of Europe. And it wasn't just that. The newspapers here, Steve Rosenberg put this out this morning. Russian domestic propaganda getting the population ready for an expansion of the war into larger Europe as soon as Trump forces Ukraine into laying back.
Judging by this article on the front page of Moskovsky Komsomolets, the Russian military isn't planning on stopping.
The Russian army may take advantage of the cooling of the United States to the Ukraine issue and begin radical actions on the battlefield. So they're saying that if they can either convince the U.S. to force Ukraine into giving up, say, the heavily fortified areas of Donbass, or if the United States can maybe stop supplying weapons, then 100% Russia is going to take as much land as possible and try to push as far into Europe as possible. So they're getting the Russian population ready for this. In particular, military experts predict the possible opening of 2 fronts at once. It's only escalation. The worse things get in Russia, the more that the Putin regime is going to deflect with things exactly like this. So we can expect a lot more of this coming. And meanwhile, the Russian blogosphere, another popular Russian military blogger, goes off script, blaming the regime for the lies that brought them into the war. The Z-blogger Alexei Leonkov, Russian military expert, analyst, blogger, and editor of the magazine Arsenal Otechestva, means Arsenal of the Fatherland. He is whining that they were lied to, and that they were led to believe that Ukraine would, of course, greet them with open arms, which they absolutely did not. I saw the so-called victory analytics claiming that 98% of Ukraine's population would welcome us with open arms. That analysis was fundamentally wrong and completely different from what Ukraine's allies were saying. They stated clearly that nearly 92% of Ukrainians did not consider Russia a friendly state. What was launched as a so-called military operation really was meant as one from the start. I know for a fact that in 2022, the National Guard was sent into urban zones with plastic shields and gear for urban patrolling. The Army had been told that the operation would unfold this way. When it became clear that the reality was different, urgent decisions should have been made immediately. Another Russian military blogger, as you know, a Russian general, came out last week and said the same thing, and I covered that on this channel 4 or 5 days ago. And the worse that things get on the war front and on the propaganda front for the old kleptocrat gargoyle midget czar there in Moscow, the more delusional he becomes, demonstrating further that the Russian dictator now inhabits a bubble-like fantasy world. A top Russian official relates a completely fake news story, in quotes, from Croatian satire news site Newsbar as if it's reality. The increasingly mentally challenged dictator eagerly laps it up. And this isn't the first time this has happened, but this time the cameras were running, and it's just becoming incredible, guys. But there are also challenges and problems we face today. In one of the EU countries, they appointed an AI minister, and now they're making claims against him because he was caught stealing. There are no basic laws regulating issues related to artificial intelligence robots, and humans need to create a legal framework that allows effective development, ensuring no harm comes to people. And Putin has not even listened to this guy. He has no idea what's going on. Look at the look on his face. I mean, this guy is, I mean, really, I wouldn't even know which Putin this is, honestly. But just to show you that is a 100% fake story. It's in the past week. It came out. It was a joke. Fake arrest of Albanian AI minister over BTC, over Bitcoin bribe, spotlights chronic Balkan corruption. Someone was making a political statement with a joke article, and the Russian propaganda machine then took it to say, look, there's corruption in Europe, and they blasted it all over US media, European media. A lot of people believed it was true, and they got sort of high on their own supply is what happened here, and then it ended up on Putin's desk. He guys, no idea what's going on, you guys. Yeah, we do know what's going on in the Russian economy, though. Motor vehicle production in October 2025 fell by more than 2.5 times compared to 2019. The Russian auto industry is declining. The decline has reached 60% over the past 6 years. This is, you can look at this chart here. As you can see, it's just getting worse and worse. We had a brief bump there, but right about when I started this channel, I guess in August, about 4 months ago, I remember we had just begun the decline. We were about here. And as you see, it's just continuing down. Now we've got mass layoffs. They're closing the factories. They're down to a 3-day work week. And it's only getting worse and worse. And further on the Russian economy, really the core of the Russian economy. Now, this is a very big deal. Price of Russian oil hits lows not seen since the depths of the COVID crisis, with Urals grade trading at sub $43 per barrel. And let me move this out so you can make sure you can see it. This is the price of Urals grade oil. And as you know, it trades at a discount because of sanctions. And now Russia and India, I'm going to get into this in a second, Russia and India are demanding massive discounts because the weaker that Putin looks, the more India and China are going to go in for the kill. I mean, they're eventually going to be selling this stuff for like $25 a barrel, maybe even less. I mean, if you look at this current trajectory, we are looking at, in the next, by like say February 1st, we are going to be about 25 bucks a barrel. That is not in any way a stretch. And that is the core of the Russian economy. And China goes in for the kill, taking advantage of Putin's increasing inability to sell oil on the global market, demanding another 8 to 15% discount on Russia's ESPO blend crude oil. Discounts widen on Russian ESPO blend crude oil to China, sources say. And as you know, Russia now has 180 million barrels of oil, now crude oil, sitting out on the world's oceans that they are unable to sell, just filling tankers, pulling it out of the ground, filling tankers, sending it adrift with no known buyer in advance. And when they run out of tankers, who knows what's going to happen if they'll shut down production. But I know Ukraine is hastily, they are busy destroying any infrastructure related to storage or transportation of oil within Russia. Things are going to get very interesting. And you know, this big propaganda trip, Putin's big propaganda trip where he went over to India, and he was seeking all these headlines that, Russia and India, best friends forever. This headline right here, India, Russia talks. Modi, Putin seeks swift investment agreement. Both sides eye 100 billion trade target by 2030. Let me tell you why this is all BS, you guys. let's get into just this one deal, the Su-57 deal, for example. The Su-57 deal, if you've been following this, Russia's most expensive and most, in quotes, advanced fighter jets. India was supposed to buy these things several years back, but as Russia got increasingly weaker and it became clear that that was the case, India increasingly was dictating terms as to how this deal was going to play out. And Putin is selling the farm to anyone that'll agree to buy his oil. India will get all that tech, even building them in India, if they agree to continue funding the collapsing Russian economy. Russia offers full Su-57 stealth fighter production to India ahead of Putin's visit. If you don't know that India is going to steal 100% of this technology, then you don't know how the old world works. All these old kleptocracies, it's all the same. And it's not only that technology that is going to be transferred now to India in exchange for headlines and in exchange for Putin trying to get the highest possible price for Russian oil. Here is a very naive Russian official celebrating one of their deals in India. What about drones? Our Lancet and Geran drones. They are very interested in Lancet drones. Yeah, I bet they are. And in all our drones in general. Yes, I'm sure they are. They are also ready to produce them. We have talked with them, and we are now discussing this possibility of localizing production in India at Indian enterprises. We'll see. Maybe we'll do something. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to do something. Russia is handing over all of its intellectual property. The entire future of Russia is going to be handed to India and China in exchange for selling oil at an increasingly cheaper and cheaper price. Another headline that Putin nailed down when he was there: Pro-Kremlin RT network launches India service with Putin's blessing. Yeah, that's going to save the failing USSR 2.0 project. No, it is definitely not. These are headlines, a lot of which is to take back to the Russian population, to make them think everything is okay and there's a big, bright future awaiting the Russian population as long as they let Putin continue to loot the remnants of the Russian economy. Moldovan police stated that they carried out more than 50 searches as part of an investigation into Russian-backed preparations for mass unrest following recent attempts to swing parliamentary elections. Firearms and other weapons, Russian bank cards, SIM cards, and cash were all seized. The group was regularly training in Serbia for operations in Europe. Russia is doing this all over Europe. I'm sure they've got it rolling in the United States by now. And just some scenes from from Moldovan police. And they arrested a bunch of guys. As you know, they tried to swing the Moldovan election as they did the Romanian election, with hundreds of millions of euros, houses full of explosives as the backup plan, and they intended to sow unrest. Explosions in the city, all these things in the case that they didn't get the election results that they wanted. They didn't get the election results they wanted, but Moldovan and Romanian police dealt with the situation, knew about what was going on, and arrested, like 50 people in Romania and like 30 in Moldova. And this is last night in Russia's city of Cheboksary. A Russian in Cheboksary is upset that all the killing that was so entertaining on TV isn't so much in real life. And all these Russians, they loved this war. They were cheering it on, and things were awesome. Things were going really well. They could sit back with some popcorn and watch the Russians murder Ukrainians every night. And oh no, no, what has happened? Yes, it was some sort of chemical facility that Ukrainian armed forces had to deal with. And that's a second strike on those facilities in the past few weeks. And Ukraine's unmanned systems forces continues to break records in terms of liquidating invaders. This is the newest division of the Ukrainian armed forces, and they are they're taking about 50% of the total Russians liquidated right now, breaking records. As you can see, I mean, almost every week they are breaking a new record. This is a trajectory that is only increasing because it's the most rapid hiring as far as all the divisions of Ukraine's armed forces. They are just getting bigger and bigger with larger and larger resources as time goes on. And failing to read the room, totally oblivious to all the aforementioned circumstances, we have the Russian propagandists also parroting the same narrative, we're going to Europe, we're going to conquer Europe, despite the fact that we just spent 2 years trying to take a little village. It's about 6 hours drive from where I'm sitting, Pokrovsk, losing about 100,000 guys doing that. They're going to war with Europe. Russian propagandists threaten to make coastal European countries, in quotes, disappear under the depths of the sea and destroy all of Europe if war breaks out between them and Russia. And apparently they found, who is that? Bela Lugosi to be the messenger boy for this particular narrative. We are not planning to attack, but if Europe wants to fight us, we are ready today. Yes, they're going to war in Europe just after they get finished being bogged down outside Pokrovsk. But the president said, please note that this will not be the same war that we are waging in Ukraine. No, they're being nice in Ukraine. In Ukraine, we're using surgical methods. By this, he means that we avoid carpet bombing and do not strike civilian infrastructure, especially residential sectors in large cities. About a 2-minute drive from where I'm sitting, folks, here in Kyiv. There's the entire top half of a building gone where several families lived. Children, men, women, kids, everybody was in there late one night, and the Russians launched a missile into that. It's still there, and they killed, like 26 people died in that. And there's hundreds and hundreds of those all over Ukraine. I can drive for 2 hours in any direction, and I can see dozens and dozens of these. So don't let them convince you with this nonsense. I don't think you believe that anyway. It will be a completely different war. It will be significantly shorter, so to speak. And they all kind of giggle. But it may end up with no one left to talk to or negotiate with afterwards. I should say the nuclear weapons were not mentioned, but I think everyone understood everything. And there's Soloviev back there in his little Dr. Evil costume. Yes, they can cause us damage, significant damage, but we can simply destroy them. That's a different thing altogether. I wonder if they understand what if, for example, Poseidon strikes off the coast of the Netherlands. There's Soloviev in his little Dr. Evil costume. Considering that the Netherlands is already below sea level, it is only a system of dikes that holds it back from the raging elements. Yes, they're going to destroy the Netherlands. Do they actually understand how different the map of Europe will look immediately? The Netherlands, Great Britain, I'm not even talking about the latter. They would be removed immediately. The Mediterranean coastline, France, Italy, may disappear beneath the depths of the sea. Yes, and let's leave it on that look right there, because that is the look of the failing USSR 2.0 in its entirety. Axios reports Trump envoys pushed Zelensky again for immediate consent to cede Ukrainian territory to Russia during a December 6th call. That is a couple days ago after meeting Putin in Moscow. Their peace proposal, in quotes, worsened, offering tougher terms on territorial concessions and control over Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, while sidestepping any real security guarantees. Everyone in Europe knows that if Ukraine gives up the heavily fortified area of Donbass, that Russia has no chance of taking militarily over the next from 2 to 5 years without losing 1.5 million more soldiers. That is the Great Wall of China protecting Europe. Merz isn't going to let this happen from Germany. Starmer from UK is not going to let this happen. Macron's not going to let this happen, because everyone knows it means large-scale war for Europe. Sure, Trump would get something signed and say, look, we've got peace, and then Russia would wait for the Ukrainian army to go home. These are all software engineers. I mean, I know so many guys fighting at the front right now, and these guys want to go home. And as soon as that happened, Russia would launch an invasion as far as they want to go, all the way to the Polish border. And nobody is interested in letting that happen, no matter how much money Witkoff and this band of effing morons around Trump will make. MAGA and the capitulationists fail to understand Ukraine's political landscape and why this is an untenable demand, with or without Zelensky at the helm. This is from our buddy Michael Weiss. Zelensky rolls out ceding land to Russia, refusing to bow to Putin or Trump. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his country would not give up territory, not to hasten peace talks, not to satisfy Washington, and not under pressure from Moscow, because it's not going to happen for a number of reasons, because it means a European war and very much probably a likely global war. A Russian that lost his arms and legs in Ukraine took the government compensation payment and tried to buy an apartment, but it was a scam and everything was stolen. No arms, no legs, homeless. Thankfully, he still has Putin. And this is just a little view into Russian culture to let you know how things work over in Russia. You say, well, how is that possible that they just steal apartments? Or they just, when you do an apartment deal, when you sell an apartment or buy an apartment in Russia, you basically just go to the notary. And so what if someone can, say, bribe the notary to, say, mess up something in a documentation? They walk up with documents, but then in the registry, the new ownership wasn't actually fully transferred. There's a million scams that they can do like that. Well, then you say, well, what if, but then they would go to jail. Well, no, not if you bribe the police. Well, okay, but I mean, you can't really just bribe the police for everything. Okay, maybe they would bribe the judge or bribe the investigative authority. You understand? This is how Russian culture works. There's no stability, and that's one of the reasons why they have to commit to this old world model of invasions and wars to deflect public attention and moving forward, stealing resources, mobilizing the population for yet more of the same business model. Bad week for Russian aviation as yet another military cargo jet crashes in Ivanovo region. Everyone aboard the AN-22 was killed when it careened into a reservoir. And that happened way out here past Moscow. I doubt Ukraine really had anything to do with that. Somebody probably just stole the thing that it prevents it from doing the thing that caused it from crashing. I looked it up in ChatGPT, and apparently Russia only has anywhere from 4 to 6 of these left. They're all built back in the 1970s, as was most of the Russian aircraft that has been keeping the Russian military effort alive. The entire crew died. And to keep the positive news trajectory flowing here, a good story. A Kyiv woman finds her cat after Russians bombed her house. And that's not what I wrote, but it is YouTube, folks, and we do things in a certain way here as far as what I'm told. This is a story that's particularly familiar to me. There was one weekend we had a particularly bad Russian missile attack, and my dogs were out at my friend's house on the outskirts of the city. And a Russian missile was shot down, debris hit the fence was knocked down, both my dogs and his dogs got out. And one of my dogs was gone for 2 weeks, the other was gone for 2 days. And the one we found miles away, just totally coincidentally in a parking lot. And needless to say, we were very happy as all you pet owners would also be upon finding we had written them off, and it was very, very good news. But the same thing sort of happens to this woman here. She's doing an interview in her bombed out home with some media, and she thought her cat was just gone. And anyway, she finds the cat. And all you pet owners out there can sympathize with this. Ukrainians are all about life, and Russians are all about death. And that is, you don't get anything out of this channel. That would be the predominant message that I would like you to come away with. Okay, guys, have a good one.